Welcome back to Client Side Chats. We're continuing our series with Grace Marin, who is the founder and president of PX Coaching. Today, we're actually going to talk about leaders rounding on staff. So this is fascinating. This is a technique that I think a lot of safety professionals and actually anyone who is in a leadership role would really appreciate that. Quite honestly, Grace, you've had experience doing, and you actually coach this. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Great, great. Well, I'll tell you what, no further ado, please take it away, Grace. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So let me just first start. When I first learned about this thing called leader rounding on staff, oh gosh, it was over 10 years ago when I first heard about it. This comes from a book called Hardwiring Excellence with Quint Studer. And I'll certainly leave you notes so you can look it up.
Great.
And this book and a number of books that Quint Studer and Studer Group published really is about the guarantee, if you will, of making sure that your metrics are going in the right direction and all those process measures to get to your quality outcome. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're getting on the scale every day, which is the outcome, you have to have certain processes to get to that scale, right? You got to choose different foods, exercise more, drink more water, etc. So all those process measures to get to your outcome is what I'm going to be talking about today. First learned about this as a new nurse leader. Just to back up, I'm a neonatal intensive care nurse by training. I've been a nurse for over 30 years. And a lot of stuff that we learn in healthcare is kind of by the seat of our pants because things are just fast moving and you kind of just pick it up, learn on the job. And so at first, when we learned about this in the organization I worked for, I was kind of like, oh, this doesn't sound fun. But like with anything that's not fun, I have to make it fun for myself. And so what I did was I was a new nurse manager. For a med surg unit that had probably about 20 employees total, which is pretty small for a typical nursing unit. And so we were given a template to use, and in Hardwiring Excellence, as well as other books called Nurse Leader Handbook, there are templates that you can use. You can certainly go off template, whatever works best for your industry. And all it is simply having an electronic document. I would just have it saved in a folder for each person and have a cadence that the employee can guarantee that they're going to have time with you. So simply their name, when they were hired, when their birthday is, just so that you, by looking at that one piece of paper, know who you're talking about. And if you've got a big team, it's hard to keep that in memory. So it's kind of nice to have it in one piece of paper. I have one client who actually on a Word doc includes the person's ID picture on that document so you can see the person that you're writing about. So just in case you're a new leader or you've got a big group. I'd also go into what they currently are educated with. What's their most recent degree or certification or education that they've done, just so that you know what kind of skills they have. And I don't know if in your industry, I would assume you'd have to get certification annually for certain things.
Yeah, there are some things that you do. Some are usually they tend to be about every 5 years or every 3 years, something along those lines. But you're very right. So,
Yep. And
uh-huh.
those are things that instead of having to go chase for it, have
Mhm.
it in one document so you can just speak to it. And especially if you have a quality, I don't know if in your industry, we often get checked by the Joint Commission or Department of Health, just so that you can speak to it as a leader, an intelligent leader, that you know what your staff are educated in and certified in.
Right.
And you start out with what is working well in the unit or in your department. Ask a very open-ended question and let them just say what it is, what's working well. And all kinds of things happen. So as a nurse manager, when I'd ask that, I'd get anything from we have enough linen today or we have enough staff today. Other people will be like, I was able to get Christmas off because of enough staff. Some other folks would come up with some really unusual things that I would never have thought that they cared about. So it could have been relationships with other departments. So interdisciplinary collaboration that they thought was really working well for them. Because clearly it sounds like there was a problem before that they're noticing there's a change. So what I do with that information is then I take that information, I either email or walk it over to that leader of that department to thank them for showing up and working with us. So that
Mm.
creates a intercollaborative, nice relationship. Because then guess what? When you start doing that, they're going to want to continue to do nice things for us because we acknowledge their good behavior and good working behavior. Another question you can try is what their work-life balance looks like and what their plans are and how you can support managing their stress. And ask them from a scale of 1 to 10, where is your stress level? I
Mhm.
do this also. I'm a professor at a nearby school in New York for the associate's degree to bachelor's program for nurses. And a lot of my students this semester have been slammed with additional COVID patients and stressed out trying to finish school, trying to finish um, the coursework and work itself, and ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst stress you've ever felt, where are you? And then ask them what kinds of things that they plan to do to get that stress level down. And when they do it, has it helped? And then ask them to reassess. So constantly doing a self-assessment. The other thing that you can do is ask, what's one thing I can do to decrease some of your stress?
Mhm.
And that's a really open-ended question that you might not be ready to ask. So be careful
Yeah.
about what you ask because you might get a, doozy that you're not ready. And, when you do have situations where you can't answer the question, I just simply say, that's a really good point. Can I think about that and get back to you? So you never feel like you're caught off guard as a leader and that you're listening. And I would write also, by the way, I would also
Mhm.
write or type all this out so they know that you're actually taking this down. Um, Also, maybe something you can ask is what's one thing leadership can do to help with either department, whether personal, and see what they say. Other things we can ask is about, and this is a sticky one, what are some tough things, words, sentences, gossip that's happening on the unit that you think
Ooh.
leadership should know about, like that water cooler discussion.
Mhm.
And if they feel safe and comfortable with you, they will share it with you. But they will say, "Don't tell anybody I said that to you." They'll always say that, and I'll just say, "Okay." Then I'm going to push it back to you and say, "Would you be comfortable holding your colleagues accountable for things that they know they shouldn't be doing?" So there's an opportunity for coaching there. And you could go on to ask, what would you like from your leadership team and list that. Some other things to kind of work on team building is what's one thing either a colleague and someone from a different department did that you would like to give a kudos uh, to thank them. And then what you do with that information is you either email or tell the person individually and who said it, what was mentioned in terms of behavior, because the premise is the more good things that are repeated, the more likely it will be repeated with that person when you are specific about the behavior they appreciated. And then ending with what personal goals do they have for themselves? Personal, professional goals. So maybe it's finishing their degree, maybe it's buying a house, maybe, getting through postpartum blues or whatever it may be, just so that you know where they are as humans as well as employees. And depending on how many staff report to you, um, like once a month is probably what I say is the ideal sort of time frame.
Ah.
But if you have a big group, you might have to stretch it out to about once a quarter, because an employee should not know upon their annual evaluation that they were doing a poor job all year, where they have no way to course correct.
Yeah.
So this is a way to create or to decrease HR nightmares, because the employees could say, I don't think this evaluation is fair, right? But if you've
Mhm.
had documentation of throughout the year of having discussion and where we are, and this is not a disciplinary discussion, this is purely just getting to know you discussion.
Right.
Disciplinary discussions are something entirely different that I also coach on as well. So I teach leaders how to have really meaningful leader to staff rounds. We role play. And I've actually recently done a virtual coaching where the
Ah,
manager and the staff are doing their leader staff rounding. And I just turn my video off, but I just listen and watch. And then I give feedback to the leader and in front of the employee. And I invite the employee to give feedback to the leader of what they appreciate most about the leader. And I found that to be so life giving for both parties. And people walk away feeling heard and feeling encouraged.
very cool.
Yeah, I have stories upon stories, and my juiciest story is sort of, it could be negative, but I don't think it's negative. So
Uh-huh.
this employee that I had on a performance improvement plan because she really just wasn't performing well, but I really wanted to give her every possible way to improve.
Yeah.
And in one of our monthly check-ins, actually with her, I was checking in with her every week because there's certain homework that she needed to achieve. And we got to a point where I was like, you do really well up to a point, and then you kind of stop and trail off. Like after a couple weeks of nailing it every day that you work, somehow you self-sabotage, and I'm not quite sure why. So we talked about that, and I just very gently said, we've gone through this whole plan we made, and we're seeing inconsistencies. And since you're not able to independently do these behaviors that are part of your job description, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go.
Mm.
And it was a hard, hard discussion, but it was a loving discussion. And what I found out later, unbeknownst to me, many months later, she came back to me and she thanked me for letting her go,
Oh, wow.
because she said, because you were so kind, and I realized I wasn't in the right job. I needed to find a job that I could succeed in, and that I didn't always feel bad after leaving work. So it's torture for both sides when people are mismatched in their role and in their industry.
Yep. And we do see that in the safety profession where people who are mismatched can end up being what we might term, frequent repetitive injury statistics, which is not a good thing.
Oh,
It definitely isn't. And so it does create a torture for them as well as for us, with regard to it. So this has been good.
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have to say I can't emphasize the importance of this, because the downstream effect of it is beyond obviously decreasing staff turnover. It really does cement and secure your financial health, as well as making sure that you have your customers who always want to come back and are delighted to give you their business.
Yeah.
And in the healthcare industry, it's patients; for you, it's different organizations. And at the end of the day, when people feel like they can trust you, they will absolutely just carte blanche, let you do what you need to do because they trust you.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about what I do in my business. Trust is 100% first above everything else.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, Grace. Thank you very much for today as well.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much for the series too on leadership, and do look forward to the next series too.
Awesome.
So that'll be great. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, Grace.